Have you ever felt like life is, I don't know, just a constant series of battles? Not necessarily huge dramatic conflicts, but the daily struggles with colleagues, competitors, maybe even just your own inner critic.
Yeah, those everyday skirmishes.
Exactly. Today, we're diving deep into a really fascinating source, Robert Greene's The 33 Strategies of War.
And it's important to say right off the bat, this isn't just about tanks and generals.
Right, not literal warfare.
No. What's amazing is how Greene takes centuries of military wisdom, really distills it into practical insights. Stuff you can use for navigating modern relationships, challenges at work.
So, timeless principles of conflict that apply everywhere.
Precisely. The book makes the case that conflict exists on so many levels. You've got rivals, sure, but also sometimes people supposedly on our side who have their own agendas, and maybe most profoundly, the conflict within ourselves.
That internal battle.
Yeah. And it argues our successes, our failures, often come down to how we handle these inevitable conflicts, moving beyond just gut reactions, avoidance, lashing out emotionally, and actually thinking strategically.
So our mission today then is to pull out the most powerful nuggets from this, show you how to maybe apply these war strategies to your own life.
Transform your thinking, maybe gain an edge.
Yeah, whether you're facing a tough negotiation or just a tricky team dynamic, or like you said, just trying to get out of your own way. Let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Greene makes this pretty bold claim right at the start. True strategy doesn't begin with your enemies. It begins with you.
Right. Your mind. He says it's the starting point for all strategy.
And if your mind is, overwhelmed by emotion, stuck in the past, lacks clarity,
Then you'll miss the mark. Always. Your strategy will be flawed from the get-go. So the first stop has to be what he calls self-directed warfare.
Self-directed warfare, that sounds intense.
It is, in a way. But it raises that key question. How do you actually wage war on your own weaknesses? What does that even look like? Greene suggests a few steps. First, you got to recognize the disorders in your mind, the patterns, the emotional traps.
Okay, self-awareness first.
Yes. Then you actively declare war on them. You decide to push forward to improve. It's about building that mental resilience, almost like internal training.
Which leads nicely into strategy 3. Amidst the turmoil of events, do not lose your presence of mind, the counterbalance strategy.
Exactly. This one really hammers home how dangerous it is to let emotions, fear, frustration, depression even take the wheel when things get tough.
High-pressure situations.
The key is actively resisting that pull, holding onto your mental power, staying decisive, confident. The more chaos outside, the calmer you need to be inside. Almost counterintuitive.
It really is. How do you do that, though?
The book gives some great examples. Shostakovich, the composer, facing Stalin.
Terrifying, right?
But instead of just crumbling before the myth of Stalin, the terrifying dictator, Shostakovich forced himself to see the man. Short, fat, he saw the reality behind the fear.
He reframed it completely.
Completely. And he spoke normally, didn't show fear, which apparently totally disarmed Stalin, who's fed off that intimidation. It shows the power of just shifting your perception.
That's incredible mental control. It reminds me of that other story, the Tea Master.
Oh, yeah, that's a brilliant one, too.
Challenged to a duel by a samurai, and he's a total beginner with a sword, right?
Fumbling, yeah. Doesn't stand a chance, technically.
But instead of panicking, he just calmly performs his tea ritual. That simple, focused task.
And that act forced his mind to concentrate, gave him composure, controlled his runaway imagination, and the samurai. He got unnerved by the tea master's calm.
He backed down.
He backed down. It suggests that finding your own ritual, your own point of focus in the chaos, is incredibly powerful.
So for you listening, maybe think about that. When things go sideways, when setbacks hit or criticism stings, how do you keep your balance? What little ritual or mental shift could help you detach from the noise?
It's a great question to ask yourself.
Okay, so from mastering yourself, the book then shifts focus. It moves into what Greene calls organizational warfare.
Right. Team warfare, essentially.
Yeah.
Leading groups effectively.
Which is tricky because everyone has their own agenda, don't they?
Always. So this part is about harnessing that collective power despite those agendas.
And speed and adaptability seem key here.
Absolutely critical in any group dynamic.
Yeah.
You need a structure that gives people some autonomy, but keeps everyone pulling in the same direction. And most important, forging a truly unified spirit.
That unity piece brings us to strategy 7. Transform your war into a crusade. The morale strategies.
And this isn't just about speeches, it's deeper. It's about getting people to think less about me and more about us, getting them invested in a shared cause, something bigger than themselves.
linking their own survival or success to the group's success.
Exactly. And the leader have to embody this. Lead from the front, make sacrifices, show commitment, and rewards, punishments.
Yeah.
Make them rare, but make them count. Make them meaningful.
The book uses Oliver Cromwell's cavalry as an example.
A really striking one. He was self-taught as a soldier, but he built this incredibly disciplined force.
He recruited true believers, people deeply committed to the cause, the Puritan cause.
Right. It wasn't just about fighting skill. Their shared faith, their belief that God was with them, made them fearless. They held ranks under fire. Their morale wasn't just high. It was like an unbreakable conviction.
That's powerful, purpose-driven leadership.
Definitely. And echoes of it in totally different fields. Look at Vince Lombardi and the Green Bay Packers.
The legendary coach took a losing team
and transformed them. He tackled what he called their adolescent defeatism head on. He didn't coddle them. He was relentless with criticism, pushed them hard.
Sounds tough.
It probably was. But the result? He forged, quote, the most tight-knit team in professional sports. They became united in proving him wrong, in meeting his standards, and they won championships.
So he channeled their individual frustrations into a collective drive.
Precisely. It's about harnessing that energy. So thinking about your own situation, what cause could unite your team, or even just your own personal efforts? How can you tap into a deeper sense of purpose?
Something beyond just individual goals.
Yeah, something that creates that powerful group cohesion.
Okay, so we've looked inward, we've looked at teams. Now let's get into the external conflict, the push and pull.
The dance of conflict, as the outline put it.
Yeah, I like that. This is where the book details strategies for knowing when to hold back and, crucially, when to strike.
It's all about understanding the dynamics of the engagement, knowing your own strengths, your weaknesses, and how to leverage both. Sometimes it means turning what looks like a disadvantage into real power, often through quite subtle, indirect moves.
One really interesting concept here is strategy 10. Create a threatening presence. Deterrence strategies.
Ah, yes. This one's fascinating.
It argues the best defense isn't always showing strength, but cultivating uncertainty about your capability.
Exactly. Making yourself seem maybe a little crazy, or just making the cost of confronting you seem too high, too unpredictable.
Without actually having to fight.
The uncertainty about the cost of messing with you can be more effective than any overt threat. It's psychological deterrence.
The story of Fujiwara no Yasumasa.
Yeah, perfect example. He was known for being strong, quick, smart, but also subtle.
And that encounter with the robber, Hakamadare.
Legendary. He doesn't fight him. He calmly disarms him. Totally bizarre. But that action created this reputation. He was seen as unusually weird, terrifying, a presence so unsettling that people feared him without him needing to constantly prove his strength.
That's a real twist on deterrence. And John Boyd at the Pentagon used a similar, though maybe less elegant, approach.
Yes, less elegant perhaps. Facing bureaucratic roadblocks for his jet fighter designs, he didn't play the political games directly.
He cultivated a reputation for being crazy.
Yeah, foul cigars, verbal jabs, knife-twisting tactic is how Greene puts it. Generals apparently learned just to avoid him, to give him a wide berth.
And that gave him the space he needed.
Exactly. It shows how being strategically unpredictable can sometimes create the room you need to operate.
So for you listening, how do you set boundaries? How do you project a presence that makes people think twice before trying to take advantage? When might being a bit unpredictable actually be a strategic asset?
Food for thought, definitely.
And then there's the flip side. Sometimes the best move is no move at all. Strategy 11. Trade space for time. The non-engagement strategy.
This is a really profound one. The core idea. Retreating when facing a stronger enemy isn't weakness, it's strength.
Resisting that urge to hit back immediately.
Yes, because that buys you time. Time to recover, to think, to gain perspective. Greene puts it starkly. Sometimes you can accomplish most by doing nothing.
Doing nothing strategically.
Precisely. Mao Zedong's Long March is the classic military example. Outnumbered, outgunned.
He just refused to fight the nationalists head-on. Used guerrilla tactics.
Exactly. The Long March itself was a massive strategic retreat. It allowed the communists to survive, regroup, gain strength. It's pure Taoism, almost Wei-Wu, action through inaction.
And it's not just military. Robert the Bruce in Scotland.
Same principle. Against superior English armies, he just wouldn't give them a straight fight. Guerrilla tactics, burning his own lands to deny them supplies, constant harassment.
For years.
For years, he exhausted them, demoralized them, until they basically had to concede Scottish independence. Masterclass in strategic patience and non-engagement.
So when you feel overwhelmed, is your first instinct always to push back harder?
Isn't it? But this strategy asks, where could strategically doing nothing or taking a step back actually let you gain perspective and come back stronger later?
Okay, now we get into some really subtle territory.
The mind games.
Yeah. Influencing minds, manipulating perceptions, even hidden forms of aggression. This section shows that controlling perception, controlling reality in a way, is maybe the ultimate power.
It really emphasizes that people often see what they want to see,
Yeah.
and that tendency can be leveraged.
Strategy 13 kicks this off. Know your enemy, the intelligence strategy.
And the crucial point here is that the real target isn't just the enemy's army or resources, it's their mind.
Understand how they think to deceive them.
Or control them, yeah. It means training yourself to read people their unconscious signals, their tells, avoiding projecting your stuff onto them, and finding their psychological weak spot.
Metternich versus Napoleon is the big example here.
A brilliant, chilling example. Metternich, the Austrian foreign minister, played Napoleon like a fiddle.
He pretended to be friendly. Let his sister have an affair with Napoleon.
All part of the act. Napoleon, wrapped up in his own ego, thought Metternich respected him, was maybe even swayed by gossip. Meanwhile, Metternich was quietly rearming Austria behind his back.
And Napoleon only realized too late.
Exactly. Duped. It's the stark reminder what you think you know about someone might just be the story they're letting you see.
Or think about Ted Williams, the baseball player.
The hitter, yeah. He became legendary because he studied pitchers so intensely. Their patterns, their tells, how they cracked under pressure.
He wasn't just hitting the ball, he was hitting the pitcher psychology.
He saw through them. So the question becomes, how well do you really read people, especially opponents? Are you just seeing your own assumptions reflected back, or are you seeing their unique fears, drives, blind spots?
It requires stepping outside yourself.
Definitely. Now, shifting gears slightly, but still in this realm of subtle influence, strategy 32, dominate while seeming to submit, passive aggression.
Okay, this one sounds tricky.
It is. Greene calls it the best hidden form of aggression. You look compliant, maybe even helpless on the surface.
But you're actually controlling things.
Exactly. You give your opponents nothing solid to push against. You divert their energy where you want it to go, all while maintaining this compliant front, pulling strings from behind the curtain.
Gandhi's Salt March, how does that fit?
It's a masterclass. Nonviolent civil disobedience against the British salt tax. Gandhi knew the British saw themselves as civilized.
So peaceful protests put them in a bind.
A terrible bind. Attacking unarmed peaceful protesters made them look bad, feel confused and guilty, Greene puts it. It exploited their self-image, their reluctance to use force overtly. It undermined the Raj morally. Hugely powerful passive aggression.
Turning their own values against them.
Wow. And Dessalines in Haiti, the false surrender.
Another brilliant, ruthless example. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the rebel leader, cornered by the French. He surrenders, actively serves his former enemies.
Lowering their guard.
Completely. Meanwhile, he's secretly rebuilding his army. Then, when the French are weak, a yellow fever outbreak hits them hard, he strikes, resumes the fight, and ultimately liberates Haiti, using submission as a setup. It's incredible strategic patience.
And manipulation of expectations. So it makes you think, where might direct confrontation be just counterproductive? Where could a seemingly compliant, even friendly exterior let you subtly influence things, guide energy where you want it to go?
Okay, let's zoom out one last time to the biggest picture, grand strategy.
Ah, yes. Seeing beyond the immediate fight, playing the long game.
Even when everything feels like chaos.
Right. Grand strategists keep their eye on the ultimate prize. They plot many steps ahead. Individual battles, they're just links in a chain. Sometimes you might even lose a battle to win the war.
It's about that higher level perspective, getting the last laugh.
Exactly. Which brings us to strategy 12. Lose battles, but win the war. Grand strategy.
The art of looking beyond the battle, calculating ahead.
Yes. Focus on your ultimate goal. Consider the politics, the long-term ripple effects. Don't just react emotionally to every little setback. Control the overall narrative. Make your actions subtle but effective over time.
Alexander the Great is the prime example here.
The quintessential grand strategist, apparently guided by his mother's belief in his destiny, but also Aristotle's logic.
He planned years ahead.
Years. His early moves, like against Thebes, were swift, decisive, uniting the Greeks. But then in Persia, he proceeded slowly. Consolidated gains, won over local populations, focused on neutralizing the Persian Navy rather than just fighting land battles.
Thinking several steps ahead.
It seemed almost godlike, Greene says, because he controlled the future landscape so effectively.
And this applies even when things look like defeats, like the Tet Offensive in Vietnam.
A fascinating case. Tactically, the North Vietnamese took heavy losses in 1968. A military defeat, by many measures.
But strategically.
Strategically brilliant in a grim way. Their target wasn't really U.S. bases. It was the American public watching on TV.
The images of Viet Cong fighting in major cities.
Directly contradicted the official story that the war was being won, that the end was near. It shattered public confidence back home. Americans lost faith.
And that ultimately doomed the U.S. war effort. A tactical loss, but a massive strategic win for North Vietnam.
It shows how perception, over the long haul, can be more powerful than battlefield results. So the final question for yourself might be, what is your ultimate goal? Your personal destiny, maybe? Are you getting bogged down in small wins and losses, reacting constantly?
Or are you playing the long game, focusing on where you really want to end up?
It's a crucial distinction.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. And what's clear is that these principles of conflict from Greene's book, they offer this incredibly rich way of understanding the challenges we all face.
Yeah, from the intense self-discipline of that tea master
to the sweeping vision of Alexander the Great. These aren't just dusty historical stories. They feel like blueprints. Blueprints for navigating life's conflicts.
Definitely. And what really stands out to me is that it's not about just being aggressive for the sake of it.
No, not at all. The book actually suggests the highest form of strategy is often winning without conflict, without bloodshed.
Turning violence back on those who use it recklessly. More Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategy, than Ares, the god of brutal war.
It's about craftiness, intelligence, long-term thinking.
So as you go about your week, maybe reflect on this. What internal battles are you fighting right now? What small arguments or issues are actually part of a bigger picture? And what's your grand strategy? What are you doing to reach your ultimate goals, to emerge victorious, however you define victory?
And remember, just knowing this stuff isn't enough. Real insight comes from connecting these ideas, applying them, seeing how they resonate with your own life, your own experiences.
Keep diving deep, keep thinking strategically. We'll see you next time.